everybody, and welcome to our weekly Wednesday webinar. I am psyched about today. This is so exciting, and I am not understating it when I tell you that today could change your life. I am not understating it. Today could change your life. And the people that we have joining us today, they are extraordinary, wonderful, beautiful people that I'm so happy to be friends with. And they're going to share some really great things with you. So a couple things. Let's do some housekeeping. Make sure, do me a favor, if you, the chat will be open. And if you have something that you want to say, make sure it's to all attendees rather than to just host and panelist. And then also, while we get going, sometimes it's hard for me to watch the chat. So our extraordinary director of operations, she is amazing, Ms. Robin Keeley. Say hello, Robin.
Hi, everyone.
Hey, there's Robin. So she will interrupt us if we need to. If there's a great question, she'll go ahead and make sure that she puts that in for us. So, hey, I bet you there might be a couple people on here who have never met me before. So I think I'll go ahead and introduce myself. My name is Cole Finley, and I am the principal owner and the founder of Finley RE Coaching and Consulting. I'm a business and performance and transformational coach and trainer. I've been a realtor since 2009. I've been managing real estate companies and coaching real estate agents since 2012, so pretty soon after I started, actually. I'm an instructional designer with over 25 years of experience as a course creator, trainer, and coach. And I am the chief architect of the 12 Weeks to Breakthrough training coaching program and soon to be launched Jumpstart program. So exciting. Okay, so before I introduce our extraordinary guests, I have a little congratulations to say. So Robert Dagan, he just graduated from our 12 Weeks to Breakthrough program. Yay, Robert, for you. Congratulations, man. So excited for you. That is fantastic. All right, let's just jump right in here. So I'm going to introduce a bio about our two guests, and then we will just get to meet them. So our first one, this is the beautiful Ingrid Hernandez, and she began her real estate career 10 years ago. She started investing 2 years ago. She's a licensed investor in the state of Arizona. She flipped 8 houses and purchased 4 in 2022. Yes, that's it. She buys property in Arizona, Texas, North and South Carolina, Florida, and Nevada. And Ingrid's favorite way of buying properties is through creative finance. I hope she talks a lot about that today because it's so cool. Because most of those strategies do not require qualifying through traditional lending means. She also loves to teach newer investors and agents how to make a creative deal work that help provide solutions for everyone involved. By the way, at the end, I am going to share our guest information with you so you can contact them because I know that's always going to be a question. Hey, then we have Mindset Marlon. Oh, I absolutely love Marlon. So he is a parkour athlete turned real estate investor and full-time entrepreneur. In 2021, he co-founded Morning Mindset Coffee, where 100 plus entrepreneurs meet daily to focus on success, transformation, and surpassing self-imposed limitations. During the pandemic, he grew his rental portfolio from 0 to 25 doors in under 2 years and completed about a dozen or more of those on his laptop. Oh my gosh. So Marlon also hosts the podcast Into the Mind, which now has over 80 episodes and over 16,000 downloads. Yes, downloads. His motto is the road to success and the road to failure are the exact same road. Failure is simply stopping before you arrive at your destination. I love that so much. Hey, Marlon, Ingrid, come on in and say hi to everybody. Hi, guys.
Good morning.
Hey, how are you?
Doing great.
So good to have you guys on here. You know, one of the things that I think you guys have impressed with me since I've met with you, and I'm so excited because I'm learning and growing too. These guys have taught me so much, guys. It's amazing. But I realized just how much real estate agents, we talk about real estate and we help our clients buy real estate all the time. But really, we don't know for ourselves how to start creating wealth through that investing. And so that's why I wanted to get you guys on here, chat all about that. So excited to have you guys on today. And thank you for taking your time out and doing this. We sure appreciate it. Okay, so maybe we could do this before we get started. Let's get a little background. And maybe I can just start with you, Ingrid. So what was life like before real estate?
Well, I am actually an immigrant to this country. I come from Colombia, South America. My first spoken language is Spanish. And I have two kids who are now both teenagers. So everyone say a little prayer for me. 16 and 13-year-old, and they're amazing. So part of my life before real estate was really being a mom, a corporate employee, and kind of figuring my way into real estate because I loved it so much. We bought a house, and I was like, this was a fun experience for me, and so it brought me the curiosity of what real estate was.
Love that. Love that. How about you, Marlon?
Yeah, so before real estate, like you mentioned in my intro, I was a parkour athlete and a parkour coach. So I had coached over 1,000 students all across the US. I absolutely loved my job, and I had the pleasure of working with young kids, from the ages of 5 upwards to the age of 18, and they would be with me year after year after year. So I took on a role in these kids' life as a mentor. And it was a position that I never quite had in my life because I wasn't quite an adult yet and I wasn't quite their age. I was somewhere in that in-between phase. So when these kids were watching me, they were kind of mimicking me. And Cole, when I would ask them, what do you guys want to be when you get older? What do you want to grow up to do? They would all say, I want to be a parkour coach. I want to be a parkour athlete. And I'm just like, great. Oh my gosh, I'm raising these kids because as much as I loved what I did, I was getting to that age where I was needing to become more financially responsible. And I was recognizing that I just wasn't earning enough. And I was kind of in this crossroads of, do I continue to do the thing I'm passionate about that doesn't pay the bills? Or do I go out and I find out how to make money, but maybe I'm miserable like many people around me? And I had to find a better way. And I started searching for a better way. And that brought me to real estate investing, where I learned it was possible to go and create win-win situations to be able to serve other people and also earn a healthy living.
I love that. I love that. And so now I know, Ingrid, you are actually a real estate agent as well as an investor. Were you ever an agent, Marlon?
No, never an agent. I went straight to investor.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Well, okay. So I'm going to come over to Ingrid first and ask you then how you discovered investing.
So during the pandemic, and having impacted our ability to make income to some extent, I found the Bigger Pockets podcast while we were at home and we were renovating our second floor. I was like, I want to expand my real estate horizons. And so I started learning about Bigger Pockets and what they do. And they were telling all these stories of real estate through investing. And I was like, like I remember now when I got my license, I thought it was going to be a path for wealth. And then I did some inward, realization that, and please, I don't say this to offend anybody, but as a realtor, you're a service worker, right? I mean, I've been a waitress. I've been somebody who, I've been working since I was 13, sold lemonade and iced tea at the stands at the ASU games here in Arizona. And I'm not a football player on the field, right? Although I'm a tangent person impacted by those activities, I found myself recognizing myself as an agent that although it's very fulfilling to help people find their properties where they live with their families and enjoy their lives, it was still a service I was providing and not necessarily a path for financial freedom. So when I found Bigger Pockets and people would illustrate how they got involved into becoming investors, there was always pieces of the story that I felt like I couldn't understand or didn't like. I, as somebody who didn't have the means to go find to buy houses myself at scale, I was like, there has to be a way, because I can't believe there's so many of these stories, like rags to riches stories. And if they can figure it out, I feel like I could figure it out. So I got myself on YouTube after listening to a lot of podcasts while I was painting walls and fixing floors, and found Jerry Norton on YouTube, which led me to find Pace Morby. And then I found that, like, hey, they're buying houses through creative finance and structuring in such a way that they actually don't even have to put their own money in there. In fact, they're getting paid to buy houses. Yeah. So that like blew my mind. And literally that was the winter of 2020. And I was like, you know, I have to figure this out. So then I joined a mentorship, which is where I met Marlon, actually. And we've become fast friends since then. And the rest, as they say, is history.
I love 2 years, guys. 2 years. And she's already like doing amazing things. I love it so much. Marlon, same thing with you. No, so how did your path take you to kind of finding pace and finding all this stuff? Tell us about that a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So very similar to Ingrid. You know, I was at that stage, like I said, where when these kids were giving me that answer of I want to be a parkour athlete, I felt a responsibility that I know they're not saying that they want to be a parkour coach and parkour athlete because that's what they want. They were saying that because I was one of the few people in their lives that was showing up genuinely happy. So what they were really saying was, hey, I just want to be happy like the way you're happy. So I realized I had a responsibility to go be happy and earn money. So I started a search. And like many folks, I was on YouTube University Googling, how do I make money? And I came across a multitude of things. And eventually I landed with real estate because it made sense. So at that time, I had found a gentleman online. His name was Max Maxwell. And so I'm getting interested. And I actually showed my girlfriend at the time, like, hey, look, I found this guy and he's teaching me how to do real estate. And she's like, you don't know who that guy is. He's on the internet. Anybody could be on the internet saying anything. So she actually suggested, and she found a local seminar that was happening by Robert Kiyosaki. So I think we all know Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, Poor Dad author. There was Robert Kiyosaki's coming to New York. And so she's like, we got to go to this seminar. And so I'm excited. I'm thinking I'm about to meet the guy. Of course, Robert Kiyosaki didn't show up. But inside that room, there was a presenter and there was a speaker, and he absolutely blew my mind with what was possible with real estate. And he showed me that, just like Ingrid said, it was possible to get into this business and to really grow wealth and grow a portfolio without any of your own money. See, I was stuck believing that it wasn't possible for me to step into real estate because, of course, you need to have 20% down and you need to be able to qualify and all of these things, which is what we're traditionally told. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. That's just one way of many ways to step into this business and step into the industry. So I got myself educated. I invested into myself. I want to let everyone know, when I invested into myself in the very beginning, because some people are going to find themselves at a place where it's time to make that leap and they're a little nervous. At that moment in time, I invested over $24,000 of money that I did not have, because I realized, you know what? It's important to learn to play the game to win, to be able to have skin in the game, to be able to put yourself out there and trust that you will come through for you. So I did that. I took that leap of faith. I began getting educated. And as my journey progressed and continued, I kept putting myself into the right rooms. And that's where I met Pace Morby. That's where I met Ingrid Hernandez. That's where I continued to grow my network and push through. And it was tough at times, but I just knew it was possible. And that's really what brought me into real estate. It was just getting that first investment in myself. It wasn't even investing in a piece of property. It was investing in between the 6 inches in between my ears.
Yeah. And that's really where the mindset Marlon comes in, right? Yeah. Yeah. I think it does. It takes, there's a couple things I heard in what you just said, and I know that Ingrid's the exact same way, is that sometimes you have a tolerance for risk that's higher than most, right? And I always call that, and people who my coaching clients will tell you, they've heard this from me a million times. It's cannonballs in the deep end, man. It's just, you know what? Let's go for it. Let's make something happen. And you're smart about it. And what I heard you say, Marlon, is there was a lot of research involved and investment involved as you went through that. And I know, Ingrid, it's very, very similar for you. So you started watching, you started mentoring. What was the first, okay, you went your first foray, and what was that like, that first deal with you, Ingrid? What was that like?
Wow. So one of the things that we were taught is that consistency will bring you opportunities because it's just a numbers game. I'm a learn it all. So when I first joined the mentorship, again, and this probably has a lot to do with sort of how you're trained to be an agent, which is you shouldn't be advising on things that you're not an expert in, right? Like tax stuff or whatever, like, hey, I'm not a CPA, check with your CPA, but here's my opinion, right? Things like that. And so because I come from that agency world, I didn't want to accidentally step into an investment or something like that I didn't have enough knowledge around. So with that sort of, I'll say, fearful perspective, it's what it took me so long to really get started. So after I consistently was on the phones and calling for the purpose of investing, my first deal kind of just dropped on my lap, and I was like trying really hard not to get excited on the phone. I was calling on warm leads out in Las Vegas, and the seller had lost his job and was on his way to being foreclosed on with the HOA, and literally didn't have groceries to feed himself or a way to pay his phone. So as a part of my helping him, I asked him for his number, like what does he want for his property, and what he wanted was very reasonable. And so when he gave me the number, I tried not getting excited because I was like, wow, his number has so much potential, so much upside if I go and I fix. By the way, he was a semi hoarder, so understand that when you're investing, and it's a completely different perspective, you're investing in potential. So when folks tell you you're taking advantage of somebody, like, hey, why would you only pay that much when you know you're going to make so much more when you sell it? Well, because at the as is, it really was worth what he was asking for, and he knew it. That's why the number he gave me was very reasonable. And I had to uncover that potential. I had to clear all the trash. I had to fix the floor. I had to redo the roof. All these other investments that take on risk as a result. But when it happened, I was like, oh my God, this is happening. I ran through all the things that the learn it all in me did, which was I ran comps. Okay, those numbers make sense. I ran how much I thought I needed to invest into the property, which was way more than I actually did. And I'm like, okay, that number made sense. And then I had a motivated seller who was agreeing to take certain conditions, which included my ability to give him 30 days after we closed so that he could find a new place to live. Yes. So there's a lot of give and take when you're doing these exchanges. And my goal is always to figure out what problems do I need to solve, not necessarily what money am I going to make. But that first deal, we netted $54,000. And I used none of my money.
Amazing. Well, there's two things I love that you just said there. Now, first of all, I want everybody on the webinar today to hear something. She did not use her own money. You do not have to use your own money to be an investor. But here's the thing I thought was really important. And Marlon, you chime in on this too. What I heard you say, Ingrid, was that you're a problem solver. You come in and you've got your brain going, and you've got options, and you solved his problem. That's pretty much where that came to. right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, during the process, because I had to be able to keep, communication, I literally paid for his phone and groceries for 2 months.
That's
Like that was
extraordinary.
not even part of the structure. This was a human who needed my help. Mm-hmm.
Right. You know, and I want to share something about that really, really quickly for a second, just because I know the type of person you are. Guys, Ingrid is, and so is Marlon, by the way. I've seen Ingrid with clients who they are at their wits' end trying to figure out what they're going to do. And I know Marlon's the same way. And she has the ability to come in and say, you know what, I've got a solution. Let's see if we can make something happen to where you're whole, taken care of, and then it's a win-win situation for everybody. And I know the people in our group, in our Facebook group, have those kind of big hearts and they want to solve things. The thing is sometimes we think that we have to be one or the other. We're really nice, we take care of people, we can't make a lot of money, or I have to be a total jerk, to make a lot of money. And that's not really how it goes. Marlon, are you feeling that as well?
Absolutely. We jokingly say that if we were to walk around wearing a cap and on the cap it had our job description, it wouldn't say real estate investor. It would say problem solver, because that's ultimately what we do. And, to follow up on, Ingrid, like my first deal wasn't even as cool as Ingrid's first deal. However, it gave me that understanding of it really is about solving individuals' problems, because I'm never going to forget this gentleman. Mr. Gaines was his last name. I'm not going to say his first name, but he was in a situation where he actually had two properties that he was looking to sell. And here's what happened. His mother had passed away and she left him a home, and it was his inheritance. Now, he didn't want any properties as a landlord. He already had a property of his own, so he didn't want to become a landlord. He never had intentions of becoming a landlord or being an investor, but he felt like he couldn't throw away his mom's inheritance. So he held on to the property and he put a tenant inside of it. And so then he started dating a young lady, and she convinced him to go buy a new home together with her. So she said, don't sell the home you currently have either. How about you turn that one into a rental property as well? So against his reluctance, he puts his friend inside the home. His friend's a handyman, and his friend says, look, give me a good rate and I'll help you take care of both of your homes. So he says, okay, because he's a good guy. He's got a good heart. As the pandemic rolls around, he starts to realize that he's not getting rental income from the first home that his mother gave to him, nor is he getting rental income from his friend. So he goes one day after work to go check on the first home. What he goes and finds when he knocks on the door, nobody's answering. He's calling, no one's answering. He uses his key to go inside the house to realize that the home has been sitting vacant now for some weeks. The woman had left the house. And not only did she leave the house, when he inspected and went into the basement, he found water damage all through the basement. She had damaged the roof. Water had been getting inside, going all the way to the basement. He was so frustrated and overwhelmed. His solution, he stepped out, locked the door, and he didn't come back to the house for at least a month.
Wow.
See, something I haven't mentioned yet, his job, he worked in the post office and he worked overnights as well. So he wasn't getting home till 8, 9 o'clock in the morning. Then he has to obviously rest up so that he can get ready for his next night shift. So it just didn't leave a lot of time and daylight to go take care of these situations.
Sure.
And at the same time, his friend that was supposed to be helping him take care of the homes is no longer answering his calls. He's avoiding him. So it's just putting a lot of stress. And all while he's paying 3 mortgages out of his paycheck every single month. He never lets the bills get behind. He's covering all of the mortgages. So when he and I finally get on the phone and we start talking and he's explaining the situation to me, and I ask him, hey, I couldn't be the first person to be talking to you about this. Like, the home's been vacant for about a month. Have you not been talking to anyone else? Here's what he said, and this is where it really hit me. He says, well, listen, I was talking to some other people who said they were investors and they would like to come and buy the property. But this is the thing. They told me they would offer one price. Then they got to the house and they were just trying to beat me up on price. And I didn't like the way they were treating me.
Yeah.
And that's why I realized it was relationships. Because when I asked him, I said, well, the number that they try to beat you up on, Did that number not work? He said, no, the number worked. He said the number was fine. I just didn't like that. I felt like they were trying to take advantage of me. And so I just had a conversation with him. I said, well, if that number works, quite frankly, I think they did their math correctly. That's a number that would work well for me as well. You know, I can purchase that first property cash. The second property was very similar to the first property. And I asked him, can we do that property for cash as well? He says, unfortunately, I still have a mortgage on that property. And the mortgage was much higher than what the cash offer was. And so there is where we had a creative solution as well. Because I had built rapport with him, because he saw the integrity that I really wanted to help, I offered to take over his mortgage payments as well. And we're able to purchase the property subject to the existing mortgage.
Right.
And this was really cool because it allowed him to be able to sell the home without having to spend money at the closing table, which was just an option that nobody had presented him with. He was convinced that he was going to have to continue paying that mortgage for another few months without being able to sell the property just because there wasn't enough equity in it yet. So it was a really cool situation. It was my proof of concept. And also it was this reassurance that in this business, the individuals that are going to do the best, in my opinion, are the ones who care the most.
I love that
Agreed.
so much.
Your story is just as cool. I don't know what you're talking about.
Well,
It's a
it didn't
cool
have a
story.
really big $50,000 paycheck at the end, but it was
No.
a paycheck that was proof of concept for me that,
Yeah.
wow, like it was so cool when it actually works. And we all know it works, but when it works for you, it's a life-changing moment when you realize that people talk about win-win situations all the time. But when you actually experience it and you actually create it, that's just absolutely, it was a life-changing moment for me.
Yeah.
And you know what's interesting too, and maybe you can speak to this a little bit, Ingrid. Sometimes I think when people hear creative finance, they hear, you know, scam, or they hear, oh, what's this? How's this going to, you know, really, you know, take advantage of somebody? Maybe you could walk us through a little bit, because everything that you talk about and you do is absolutely legal and absolutely a smart move. Can you walk us through just a couple of scenarios there?
Yeah. I also had my first proof of concept shortly after that initial one that we just talked through. And in that scenario, there was a soldier who was in pre-foreclosure. This is a property out in Houston, and had been raising dogs in his property. And so there was a need to fix the house up. And in order for him to sell the house, he was going to have to actually pay to sell, you know. And those are similar questions he had. Is this legal? There's actually in the HUD form, in the settlement statement form, there's actually a line item in that settlement statement form that says subject to, because people do this type of transaction all the time. And in fact, it came from multifamily. In the multifamily space, subject to happens so often. A lot of times you already have very big commercial loans in place, that the best way to structure it all is to keep it in place and then structure what would be the seller's equity in second or third position, depending on how the loans are structured. So I don't know who, but I know Robert G. Allen back in the 80s wrote about this and wrote about how to leverage existing loans on properties. And he wrote a book and actually said, look, this is legal. The part where people get, and I'm not proposing that there's no risk, there is risk. Every mortgage company now, and I would say in the last 10 or 12 years, has added language into their loans that say they could call a loan due. And so because they have the ability to do that, it means you have to disclose that there is a risk that the loan would be called due, but it's legal. In fact, if you went back to go see this, again, I'm a learn it all. If you go back to the Supreme Court, they've actually ruled that it's legal. Ruth Bader Ginsburg actually sent out an opinion about it, because when you do buy property, one of the really cool things about America is that we make it public record. So when there is a transition of one deed to another, a person or entity, it becomes public record. And you want it to be public record because you want people to know, like, hey, I have a stake in this property, I own this property. So the Supreme Court ruled that this is legal back in like the 80s or 90s. And their perspective, or at least this is what Ruth Bader Ginsburg wrote about, is that because this is public information, there's no fraudulency or anything to that regard that would say that the mortgage companies don't have an ability to find out who is actually running, the deed, or who is actually paying for their loans. And quite frankly, banks are in the business of owning notes and having paid their investors that money. So long as their loans are performing for the most part, that's what they want. They're not in the business of owning properties. So it's actually quite costly to them if they act on their due on sale clause.
Gotcha. So if we kind of take a look, everybody, at what we're talking about subject to, well, what does that mean? So we have an investor who wants to buy a property, and let's say that the person who owns that property right now doesn't have enough equity in it. So maybe they need to sell it and they might have to short sale, or it might have to go through foreclosure. Well, the investor can come in and say, okay, here's what we can do. We can take title to the property and take it subject to the mortgage being paid off. So title goes to the investor and they are paying off that mortgage. That's usually serviced through a title company, through escrow. So that is a service property. And what that creates is a win-win. This seller is able to get away from that property or whatever condition that they have, and there are numerous conditions. And then the investor can come in and take that over. Now, here's a couple things that does. Let's say that you've got that seller and they're really in a hurt, right? Well, guess what? This investor now is paying their mortgage, and when they were maybe going into some negativity as far as their credit, as far as their status or anything like that, now this investor is paying this mortgage, and all of a sudden we're actually even helping the former owner of the house. So there's, again, these win-win scenarios within a subject to. I think it's absolutely fascinating.
And we're actually making the lender win too. That's something we don't talk about a lot, but the lender now has their reinstatement money. So we've now back, if it's a pre-foreclosure scenario, like the Houston scenario, he was $6,000 behind, and we paid that $6,000 so that we could help him be whole again with the mortgage. So the lender is happy because now whoever's investing into that banking system, they're made whole. The seller is happy because now their credit score can go up, and we're servicing their loan as was supposed to be expected. And then we're happy because hopefully we've structured things in such a way that we're cash flowing. Generally speaking, when you have a creative finance situation, the goal is for cash flow. Yes, the house, how it appreciates matters to some extent, but the number one imperative is that it cash flows.
And situations where we see this to be pretty common is, like Ingrid said before, it's going to be situations of, any sort of pre-foreclosure situations. And many of our realtors run into these situations all the time. And unfortunately, some of the only tools that they're given are either fix the home up and get it back on the market, which we have to remember, a person sometimes in these situations, they might not have the additional capital to get the home to that current market standard. Or it's to have these individuals go through a short sale, which is an option sometimes, but then we're put in a situation when their behavior is well again, and they're looking to get back into the next property. They have this negative remark on their credit score. So it starts to harm their future. So we want to be able to allow an individual to get back on their feet as quickly as possible, really being able to move forward to the next chapter of their life. Another area that we consider is also, Ingrid mentioned earlier the individuals that are in the military. See, we get a lot of young men and women who have access to VA loans, and sometimes they're able to put $0 down. So when they go and purchase these homes, they're coming into the home no money out of pocket, or very, very little money out of pocket. And there's not a lot of equity because they didn't have to finance a 20% down payment. So when this occurs, and let's say they get restationed in 12 or 18 months and they choose to sell the property, even with a little bit of appreciation after closing cost and things of that nature, they find that they have to come out of pocket maybe $15,000, $20,000 just to sell their home. And that's at a full ask offer. So being able to take over those sort of mortgages is also another benefit to those individuals because it allows them to sell. And sometimes, in case the investor is getting a great deal, most investors will be transparent when they're doing these sort of situations and they're able to produce a good amount of cash flow. They can actually even pay that individual to take over their mortgage because they're gaining the benefit of being able to take over financing on the property. They don't have to go out and take 2 or 3 months to go and qualify and get new financing on the property. So it becomes a win-win for everybody.
Love that. Love that. Hey, I am curious for you guys who are on here. Do me a favor. We're going to keep talking, but what I want to find out is, do you have or have you ever heard of one of your clients or people in your database, your sphere of influence, who may have been in this situation? Maybe they really wanted to sell their house, but they weren't in a position to be able to do that. And maybe they really needed to sell their house. Maybe there was some type of situation that came up, divorce. Perhaps it's an estate. Perhaps it is like the military when someone needs to leave, or maybe it's a job transfer. If you guys have had any of those situations, say yes in the comments for us. That would be fantastic. And while you guys are doing that, I'm going to ask Ingrid, what's your biggest success so far doing this?
My biggest success? So I know that we probably want to go into real estate and like, hey, what was your most successful real estate scenario? But I feel like my biggest success for me has how I've grown.
Oh, I love that.
Again, I had a very different mindset, and that was you trade time for money. And now realizing that, like even the pre-foreclosure scenario with that soldier, which by the way, if soldiers foreclose, their security clearance is at risk. So they can only make it in the military so far if they foreclose on a property. So we helped him not just fix his credit, but we also helped with his clearance in the military by helping him out. But for me, it's been that. It's like how I think different, how I have different friends like Marlon, how I've changed like who I'm around and what I talk about. Like I don't talk about last night's game. I talk about, hey, are we going to go after that property in such a place? Because now I'm building wealth for my family. And it's just a completely different environment I've created for myself.
I love that so much. Marlon, you're smiling like crazy. I'm thinking this is hitting a button with you.
It absolutely is. And now you can see why Ingrid and I are such good friends, because my answer is very similar. It really, for me, it's not about the property. It was always about the lifestyle of really being able to go out into the world and create the life I want. You know, not for nothing, I started my life in New York, and I always had that dream and vision of wanting to get up and go on that adventure. And with the ability to learn how to invest and really learn how to think differently and become an entrepreneur, it's given me that freedom to travel and still support myself, maintain a standard of living that I'm happy with, that I'm proud of. So I've been able to come out here to Arizona and make the greatest friends of my life. I've been able to enter into rooms that I've only ever dreamed about. You know, when I was growing up, I had one major ask. I said, I just want to be surrounded by cool people who are doing cool things, that they get along and they build their dreams in a way that doesn't take away from anyone else building their dreams. And now that has become what my life is. I get to travel around the world. I meet amazing human beings. I've built relationships with multimillionaires and even billionaires, which, you know, where I come from, that's like something I could go back and tell my friends, and they're just like, wait, you've met billionaires? And I'm like, yeah, like I've got this guy's number right here. I was just hanging out with him on the podcast. And it is just a dream come true. So, some people go to sleep at night so that they can go to their dream life. I wake up in the morning and I get to be in my dream life.
I love that. I love that. And here's what I'm going to get really excited for especially for anybody who's on the call here. They'll get to know your number, and so they'll know when they've met a billionaire, because that's on your track, right?
Absolutely.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Okay, so biggest learning lessons so far. I never talk failure, right? Or never talk. We talk fall rather than failure, because we can always get up on that. But biggest learning lesson so far in this adventure?
I can talk about mine right now. I'm actually in the middle of it. I bought a property in Texas with a partner, and at the end of the day, I do try to take an approach of everything is my fault. So if everything is my fault, what do I have the control to learn and fix for the future, right? And so I bought a property, and I didn't listen to my gut. My gut had told me not to get involved into this property, but the upside was so big that I was like, this is just old me. This is old me being scared of taking this risk. I did all my math, right? I did all my homework, all the things that we said we're supposed to do. We got a comp. What are we buying it for? And this was a creative deal as well. It's called a novation, but I did not get enough information about novations, and it ended up being what we call a subtail, meaning I take over the property subject to, just like we've spoken about here, and then my goal is to fix and flip it and put it on the market. Now, because I didn't listen to my gut, I got involved with the seller that was not somebody who I would not to say I wouldn't want to help in the future, but I didn't have control of the relationship because somebody else brought me this deal, and I wasn't able to set expectations about how we were going to treat each other, how this was going to move forward, and what our goal was. I had somebody else doing that. So what I learned is that I need to make sure that I own that, because I am very relationship based, and that if I own that, then I can have a better sense of whether or not I should get involved into a deal. So going forward, that's the way I approach things now, where I need to have that conversation with the seller. It's very much about, because oftentimes when we get into deals, it's about how much, we're going to take. But like at the same time, it's like, how much am I going to have to give to this relationship? So my learning opportunity there is control the relationship a bit more and have more upfront expectations from everyone involved, including the seller. So we went from a property that we were going to make around $175,000 to I just signed the contract this morning where we will lose 15 grand. But I happily will lose the $15,000 because I need to get out of this deal already, just because the seller was extremely challenging to work with.
So smart. So smart. Because you step out of that fear space. You say, oh no, I get, because here's the thing in real estate, we get so desperate. We're desperate for our next commission. We're desperate for every single client. But when we can change the mindset and say, you know what, I always have an opportunity here. It's coming out, and I'm just going to keep those positivity flowing. I love that. I love what you said there, for sure. Marlon, biggest learning.
Yeah, so I have to agree. One of the biggest lessons I learned approximately a year and a half ago, as I was building and continuing to scale my business, I had started to take advice from people who didn't quite have the life I wanted to live. And I think it's starting to get a little noisy out here, right?
Can't hear it. You're good.
Perfect. So I started to take a little bit of advice from people who they didn't build what I wanted to build. And really, I was getting out of alignment with what I wanted personally. So I had a team of about 15 people. I was building out a business model that was absolutely stressing me out. And although it was making money, I was absolutely miserable on the inside. And it took me a long time to learn to walk away and to fold from that. So the lesson I learned is you have to be in alignment with yourself. When we start building a business and we start building our life and we start building out the things that we want, if it doesn't excite us, we really need to sit down and reassess. Is it time to pivot, or am I simply going through a tough time in order to get the thing I desire? But you have to be clear on it, because the money I earned during that time, I'll be honest, it felt very empty. There were moments where I was receiving money and it didn't bring any joy to me. I almost wanted to get rid of it as quickly as it came. So it's really important. And this is why I talk so much about mindset. I remind people to check back in with themselves. Your life should excite you. You should be excited to wake up and pursue whatever it is you're pursuing. There's so many ways to go out and to earn money legally, but you're going to do the best when you're serving and you're enjoying the way that you serve, when it actually brings intrinsic value to you because it's just what you enjoy. You're going to outperform every day of the week.
Love it. Love it. I hope you guys are hearing something here. I put a reel up today and we were talking about having a flabby mind. Like if you are out of shape, for example, physically out of shape, and you can be all flabby, and the way that you can get in better shape is you go to the gym, right? You take action, you go to the gym, you work out the weights, you do some cardio, you do all the things you need to do to get yourself in shape. But here's our challenge, is that so many times we don't think about that for our mind, right? So we might even be going to the gym, but we wake up in the morning, alarm goes off, feet go planted on the ground, and all of a sudden we have stinking thinking starts off right off the bat. It's all about the stinking thinking that's happening, right? And so it's flabby, right? So when we really are talking about mindset, we're talking about what are the good things you're putting into it. How are you really stretching your mind? How are you really looking at other opportunities? And so, Marlon, when I was thinking about that today, when I was putting the reel together, I was thinking about you, and I was going, I wonder what it's like for the people who are in your entrepreneur group, and what does their journey kind of go like?
Absolutely. You guys sure you can't hear that?
Can't hear it. You're good.
My God, this microphone is phenomenal. There's like
It
four lawnmowers going on around me. So for the individuals in my entrepreneurship group, I'm glad that we're talking about this, because everything starts with your mindset. It starts with your perspective. And oftentimes people step into the realm of entrepreneurship and they're excited about what they can go and do. However, they haven't done the work yet of building themselves up. So although their goal, I like to say your goal exists somewhere up here, but you're doing the thing and you're feeling like it's not working, it's not happening. Why isn't it working and happening? It's because our self-identity still exists here. We still hold on to the self-identity of the W-2 employee, of being in middle class, of having a scarcity mindset, of in order to build wealth, I have to save, and conserve, not go out and create because I live in a world of abundance. See, first we have to change the framing of how we see ourselves and how we see the world. So with the entrepreneurs that come into the MMC calls regularly, what we're doing is we're working on this. We're exercising our mind the same way we exercise our bodies. Because we have to remember, most of us, we've spent 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years living in an older mindset that just, it's not negative, it's not bad or good, it is what it is. It's a mindset that says, in order for somebody to win, somebody else must lose. That's not the truth. It says that, hey, it's possible to obtain wealth, but in order to do so, you're going to have to step on other people's backs. That's not true. That if I want to go and earn more money, I'm taking it away from somebody else. That's not true. So we have to reframe the thinking. So we do that a lot by studying, right? We actually look through case history of other individuals. We read through the autobiographies of individuals, the Andrew Carnegies of the world, the Napoleon Hills, the Oprah Winfreys, the Steve Jobs, and we start to look for the unifying golden thread between all of them. Because although they're all different, although they come from different industries, there's certain things that we see, certain principles at play. The same way we have gravity acting on us, we see that there's a principle of the more you serve, the more you give to others, the more that comes back to you. whether you like it or not, if you just simply live by that principle, it produces a result. So sometimes when people are looking to earn a lot of income, I have to remind them that don't focus so much on earning the money. Focus on serving other people. Focus on providing more value than anybody else. And money will naturally be the result of that activity. So if you just focus, I want apples, I'm just going to focus on planting apple seeds, because the natural result of planting these seeds and watering this garden, watering the garden of our mind, will be the result of producing fruit.
Yeah.
Love that.
And
Love that.
I have to add one of the books that I read that really helped with that narration change was Secrets of a Millionaire Mindset. Like, it was such a great book because it, to Marlon's point, it wasn't a good or a bad. It's just, what were you exposed to that resulted in the way you frame things today? And if you want to become this person who can get more, you know, who has the ability to receive more, you also have to be able to service more and to reframe some of the stereotypes that we have, that we grew up with. And so I thought it was a really, really great read. And I think, you know, it's one of those that you have to read like once a quarter to remind yourself, like, you're having to unlearn a lot of those things that keep you from being the different person you're trying to become.
Yeah, yeah. And you know, and I love what, go ahead, Marley.
I want to add one thing.
Absolutely.
This is vitally important. I would feel like I was doing a disservice if I didn't say this. One of the biggest factors to changing is also just paying attention to who you surround yourself with. I mean, those of you that are tuning in right now and you're hanging out with Cole, you're doing yourself such an amazing service, because you're putting yourself at the right campfire. You're putting yourself around someone who wants to bring positivity. They want to bring value to you, and you interact with one another, hang out in the Facebook groups, connect with one another, because these are the people that are going to help keep that positivity alive, that are going to help feed into that new life you're creating. And it's so vitally important to bring those sort of people into your world. It's a secret code. We call it the proximity. The power is proximity. There's a secret life code. This is why Ingrid and I will go out and we'll get dinner together, and we'll sit down at dinner and we're just hanging out. And then before we know it, we're talking about deals and we're talking about new strategies, and we surround ourselves with others like this.
Love that so much. So, you know, we were talking servers for a second, and Ingrid, I know that one of your passions is to help people who want to kind of get into what we're doing. How would you advise that new person? Maybe one of the people who are watching us today, how would you advise them to get started in this?
Well, one of the ways I would say, follow me on Instagram. I do put out content, or hopefully helpful content, to speak to some of the strategies we use. I don't think I shared this with you, but we just started a podcast on Wednesdays from 4 to 5 p.m. Arizona time, where we answer a lot of these "how do I get started" questions. And hopefully when you go to like my YouTube channel, you'll see some of like where you can bridge the gap. Another is I'm actually a agent under Real Brokerage, and we have started a group called the Family Tree. So for those agents who want to go beyond just being a traditional agent, but want to learn how to make money in other ways, in terms of cash deals or creative finance deals, like ways that they have more tools to help others who they come across in more ways than a traditional sale. And it doesn't even have to be that. It could be like, hey, I need a roofing referral, right? Like all of those things. But in my group, we're dedicating an hour every week, and then we also prioritize people who have questions outside of those Zooms, where we start teaching them different ways to approach the kinds of problems that traditional real estate isn't helping them solve. So kind of incubating these super agents, if you will, that can come across these scenarios in their marketplace and be able to bring those challenges to me, and we can work through them together, whether it's underwriting, whether it's comping, structuring. Again, I want to see them win as a part of as a part of being in my own campfire of the family tree.
Love that. And I'm going to share both Ingrid and Marlon's contact information in just a second. Okay, Marlon, same question to you. Someone gets started in this business, how would you advise them?
Yeah, so for anybody looking to get started in the industry, my favorite advice to give anybody is to start putting yourself around other investors and find somebody who's already a proven performer. If you're in the Arizona market, reach out to Ingrid, connect with her. It will surprise you how open and willing people are to share their information if you come with a spirit of giving. If you come with a spirit of, I want to be of service, and in exchange, I want to get started, I want to learn, because we all remember what it was like to get started. And go and figure out a way to provide value to an investor, find value and bring value to them. And this way you'll actually be able to see how the hot dogs are made, if you will. You'll be able to get inside there and start to gain some experience. And you'll start to see it's very, very possible for anybody, regardless of age, regardless of ethnicity, background. This industry doesn't care how old you are, how young you are, if you have resources, if you have no resources. By the way, if you think I have no money, but you have time, you've got the most valuable resource that any of us have. So come and connect with people. And if you're in another local market, find your local RIA. You could find it on Facebook groups. You could find it on meetups. You just go and type in REIA, find your local RIA, and begin to go to these networking events and be a fly on the wall. Even if you're like, I don't know how to add value yet, go and listen, go and learn, start to put yourself around that campfire. It's impossible to stay around people like this and not start to let it rub off on you. So anyone looking to get started, I would just tell you, go and get as much proximity as you can to someone who is producing. Stay close to Cole, stay close to Ingrid, connect with like-minded people.
I love that so much. Okay, so I'm going to try a networking thing for just a second for everybody here. All right, so Ingrid and I are actually looking for a property in northern Arizona. So that half acre or so, 3,500 more square feet, 5-bedroom. Anybody has a client like that who is really interested in maybe doing a creative finance thing, contact us and let's do something together. See, I threw it on out there.
And I want to remind everyone too, if your client, if you're like, well, this person doesn't even have a mortgage, they own the property free and clear, can they still do creative financing? Oh my gosh, yes, they can. See, what's really cool, especially with our clients that have higher price point properties, and maybe they're a little bit older, they're not looking to reinvest and go and get another property. They just want to be able to cash out. Maybe they want to cash out at the top of the market, and they know that if they take all of that cash today, they're going to get hit with heavy tax burdens. They could even do something as cool as seller financing the property. And a lot of agents don't know about this. So if you're having a client that has a really beautiful home, and maybe it's their second or third home, and it's in that market, it's up there in Sedona, reach out. Let's have a conversation. Put Ingrid on the phone. Let her create that win-win situation.
Absolutely. Hey, by the way, guys, on the group, I think what we'll do is we'll create a special chat inside of the group and we can start having this conversation together with our group members, and we'll get you guys involved in it as well. Okay, so I promised you guys contact information for these two amazing, beautiful human beings. So here is Ingrid. By the way, you'll see her normal contact information here, but this QR code will take you to her link tree. And it has all sorts of different contact information and a lot of other really cool stuff. So I'm going to really encourage you guys to go ahead, grab your phone, go ahead and shoot this QR code and then get that from her. That is fantastic. You'll notice that her email is doihaveadeal@gmail.com. Absolutely love that, by the way. Here's her phone number. And again, if you don't know how to do that QR code, there is her link tree for Ingrid. So I'm going to give you 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, and let's go to Marlon. Same thing. This QR code will take you to his link tree. Here's his all his information. Definitely take that out. These are fantastic people to get to know guys. You absolutely want to make sure that you start networking. It's one of the most important things we do when we're talking about investing. Yes, you guys can do it too. So again, I'm going to give you 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right. And I'm going to go ahead and I'll give you one more QR code. And this one is for me. So here's, if some of you guys know this, I do business consultations every single day with agents all over the country. And we really talk about what is your business, what kind of gaps do you have in your business, where are your strengths in your business, and how can we really help shore those up. So there's a lot of great things there. Feel free to scan that QR code. And what that'll do is that'll take you to a platform to be able to go ahead and schedule some time with me. And I would love to do that with you guys. Be so fantastic. So there's mine. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, so we're over on time just a little bit, but how about just like one parting word from each of you guys? How about you, Ingrid?
I would say, don't be afraid to have an open mind.
I love that.
And I would say life is a team sport. So please don't try and do this on your own. Please don't think that you need to do it on your own. Please don't feel like you're ever a bother. Reach out to people, ask for help. I ask for help all day long, and that's why I've been able to do what I have done. And I will continue to grow because I will continue to put myself in a position to ask for help. You don't need to know everything. That's why I talk to Ingrid. She knows everything.
I love that. Hey guys, you have been so fantastic. Wow, what a wonderfully content rich thing. There's so many ways for you guys to start getting into investing, building wealth for yourself and for your families, and creating that absolute life worth living. Thank you, everybody, so much for joining us today. We will see you next week. Remember, we got Jeff Quincy coming back next week, our favorite mortgage loan officer. So traditional on that side. We did creative today, traditional with him. Thank you so much, everybody. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye-bye.